Hey guys, Kevin here, back with another Lost Sword video. Today we're going to be doing the support slash healer slash tank tier list, where we're going to be looking at the strongest kind of supporting cast units after you fill out your DPS, after you pick your main DPS slot, which we covered in the last video. So we're going to be covering the units in the top tier, S tier, and A tier. So you can see here, Belsi is in a tier of her own in the Belsi tier because I personally think she's the strongest unit in the game, DPS or otherwise, because she fits into every team. She does everything you want. She does damage. She has a stun for CC. She has a defense down, and she's tanky. She's a frontline unit. So I think Belsi, in my opinion, is the best DPS in the, well, not best DPS, best unit in the game actually. And I think she has a very good card as well, which plays a factor. And I think definitely, no matter what type of team you're looking to invest in, I think you always want to get her. You always want to invest in her as much as possible because she brings everything to the table, and she's definitely, I think, a must-have on any account. And she's one of the best looking units in the game as well, so that also helps. So the second unit we're looking at is going to be Galahad. So Galahad is the linchpin of any mage slash ranger comp you want to run because her ultimate gives you the 250% range attack and magic attack at T5, and that lasts for 20 seconds. The 20-second buff, and her ult cooldown is 30 seconds. So 66% uptime on that, which is pretty amazing in this game, to be honest. And I think you definitely you can't play an archer or magic comp without her. So she's definitely a must-have. She also has damage reduction for the team and defense increase for the team, so she brings some survivability in that right as well. Next up is going to be Erin. Erin is kind of a hybrid because she can fit into, again, the melee attack teams, the HP scaling teams, or the mage or wizard teams, because first of all, her ultimate is a massive survivability because it's basically a huge shield that she generates, and then she also gives your team 35% additional damage, which is pretty big. It's a 12-second uptime, so not as much as some a unit like Galahad, but it's still very useful. And her ult is also a 30-second cooldown, and she has a passive, which is HP boost, so that's boosting the size of her barrier as well. And then she has the attack boost on one of the passives and the additional damage and damage reduction boost. So she basically is like an all-in-one support. She brings DPS increase, she brings survivability, and she's tanky as well because she has the HP boost for herself. So one of the best supports in the game for sure. And then we have Diane, who is like the melee version of Galahad, where you can't play a melee team without her because she gives you 150% melee attack and then 25% additional damage. So any attack team around like Lohengrin, Rand, those kind of units, you always see a Diane in there as well. And she also brings she can kind of be a hybrid buffer for when you like combine something like a Lancelot with something like a Lohengrin, because she also has the crit damage passive, which gives you 70% crit damage for all allies. So one of the best supports in the game, one of the most versatile supports in the game, because she can fit into two of the strongest teams at the moment, and she's also a healer, so she's buffing and also healing your team. So very good unit in that regard. Next up, Neo Bedivere. So Neo Bedivere was a very interesting unit at the time because she's the first unit where she's a healer, but her healing is based on how much damage she does. So you want to build her full damage, as much damage as possible, and she's going to heal based on how much damage she's doing. So she's a very strong unit in that regard because you're basically you're basically playing with an additional DPS, and you have the survivability you would usually have with something like an Assault, like a Guinevere, those kind of units. So I think she's a very good. She was a very good addition to the roster, and she still is to this day. So still a great investment. I think she's she probably heals the most in the game out of any of these units, aside from stuff like maybe a Lancelot who has the self healing, maybe like a Belsi as well. So definitely, I would invest in your Bedivere, no matter what comp you're trying to play, because she can kind of substitute as that second support besides like a Galahad for the Wizard team or a Diane for the melee slash HP team, and she's very good looking. And then next unit is going to be, we're going to be diving into the A tier now, which is going to be starting off with Merlin. So Merlin was, she would, if you asked me at the start of the game, she was in the S tier alongside the Galahads, the Erins, the Dianes, the Neo Bedivirs. But I think as the Wizard team has kind of started to fall down compared to the melee and HP team, I think she has also suffered some of that impact where I think she's not as good as she was at the start of the game. She's still a very good unit, still a great investment, but I think we could be moving into a new age kind of wizard meta because when you look at Asteria's kit, she's kind of slotted in as like a slight upgrade on Merlin, in my opinion, because she brings the same or a similar kind of buff to Merlin, but then she also has added impact where she should be doing more damage when she gets to proc her dragon. And I think she could pair really well with some future mages because of all the wizard specific buffs she has. So I think Merlin is still a great investment. If you like her, you can definitely invest in her and succeed. So don't take this as a like Merlin sucks, she's not good enough. I think Merlin is amazing, just not as strong as she was previously. And then moving on to the next unit, which is going to be Isabel. Isabel, she was pretty mediocre when the game first came out, I should say. But then she got some buffs which added the damage immunity based on hit count, which I think really changed the game for her because in a lot of like comps when you're struggling for survivability, she can be the go-to because she brings debuffs to the table where she reduces the crit chance and attack of the opponent, but she also brings the damage immunity for herself from her passive, and then her active gives 10 hits of damage immunity. So for bosses that hit either slowly or hit infrequently, she basically makes you take no damage the entire fight. So a very, very strong unit, very, very good for survivability. So I think when you're playing like down a lot of levels, she can be really key to beating those kind of stages. So definitely a nice unit to have. Next up is going to be Christina. Christina is, I would say, an interesting unit because she's like a main DPS that can also slot into the support role where she has the damage. She brings the damage to the table where she has like the AoE ultimate, the self buffs, the crit reduction that she can apply. She can burn as well. But then I think the issue she runs into is that she doesn't she doesn't do enough damage to be considered a main DPS, and I think her buffs are not that amazing because she does have one passive which gives you a big attack boost, 56% attack to all allies. But then her second passive is root resistance, which is not as useful unless in like a new stage where you're fighting like a boss that might root. And then her second buff, which is 24% additional damage, which is great when the enemy's burned, but it's only to fire attribute allies. So that's going to be only like Belsi, K, those kind of units. And if it was a team wide buff, then I think she would be way, way higher on this tier list. She would definitely get into the S tier at least. But because it's fire specific, it's not as good. And I think that's what kind of pulls her down to the A tier. Uh, one of the last units we're going to cover is going to be Isolde. Isolde is just a generic healer. She brings shock resistance, so she can be good for stages where the boss is shock. She has damage reduction, which can scale up to I think is 20% on her active skill, and that's 100% uptime on that. So very, very good skill. And she's honestly there's not much to say about her because she's just like your generic healer. She heals a lot, especially with her active ultimate, which heals you for a percentage of her attack. But the issue she runs into is after a unit like Neo Bedivere comes out, where she can provide similar level, if not more levels of healing, but like at a how should I say at like a with the benefit of damage as well. You're not often going to be using a sword. I think she's more of an early game type unit when your Neo Bedivere might not have as good stats or your low transcendence on her, but I think your sword definitely falls off late game. So to be honest, I would prefer an A tier, but I think she could fall into the B tier the later you get into the game because you don't really need her. And then the last unit we're going to be covering in this support tier list is going to be Asteria, the newest unit in the game. I mentioned before how she has the wizard specific buffs, which is the 25% additional damage taken on her ultimate is a debuff she applies, and then the 50% or sorry 70% magic attack boost to all allies. I think she's a unit that's gonna scale. I think a lot of people would have seen from my first video. I have like a lot of stocks invested in her because I acknowledge that she's not in the strongest spot right now, but I feel like she's gonna scale as we get stronger wizard, like a stronger main DPS wizard. Not to say Tiamat isn't one of the best DPS in the game right now, but I think as we get like stronger wizards, because that was the trend with knights where we got stronger knight DPS and the knight team became the best team in the game, and I think that's going to be a similar trend with wizards. And I think you're not going to be able to kind of take advantage of that unless you have Asteria. So she's in the A tier for now, where I think she's a good unit, but not the strongest or not as strong as units above her. But I think she can definitely rise as we see stronger DPS come into the game. So yeah, this was going to be my wizard on, sorry, my support slash tank slash healer tier list, looking at some of the best units in the game. I think definitely Belsi is on banner right now, so I would 100% suggest you grab her because I think the game is so much easier with her, and she's like one of the best looking units in the game as well, which never hurts. So definitely pick her up. And then I think Isabel and Eva are the other units right now, so they're nice to have. Not as important as Belsi, so if you aren't as interested in their design, their kits, I think you can skip. But yeah, this was my support DPS tier list. I will try and be making similar content to this in future. So yeah, like, subscribe, share with your friends, and see you guys in the next one.